Whip Chippendale.
Thank you, Speaker. At this point, I would like to move an amendment. I move LC 000-869/6. And while that's loading up, that's the same exact amendment we were just arguing on, with the exception of the fact that it does not pull money from the Rhode Island Promise. Oh yeah, I need seconds before I can ramble on, so let's get the seconds out of the way.
Whip Chippendale moves amendment LC 000-869/6. That is seconded by Representative Lyle, Representative Roberts, Representative Nardone, Representative Price, Representative Quattrochi, Representative Place, Whip Filippi. Proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm hopeful my colleagues find this a little bit more tasteful. I will be offering an amendment that seeks to fund this rather than through Rhode Island Promise. This year we are increasing the film tax credit program from $15 million to $20 million. So I'm proposing we take the 2.9 from that rather than take it from the Rhode Island Promise. However, this amendment still remains the same and all arguments are still germane. I'd like to pick up. There are truths about this department that are very, very upsetting. And I agree the accreditation is good. And I'm glad that there's finally urgency on this issue, but we can't even wait for that to be completed before we act. In 2008, there were 815 employees in that department. Right now, there are 620, many of which are still empty. It's almost 200 positions in 1 decade. And what's happened in that 1 decade? The opioid epidemic has happened. And every single frontline worker has been telling us how complicated their jobs have become because of the opioid epidemic. Certainly that contributes to those types of things that require the intervention of DCYF. We have lost our best and brightest in that department because they're burnt out. To have people sit in our office and cry to us that they love their job, but they're lateraling out to another department because they can't do it anymore, is heartbreaking. Instead of people who are social caseworkers with 8 years, 12 years of experience, the average now is 3 to 5 years. And the people with 5 years are saying they still don't know everything they need to know to do their job. We used to train them. We had an academy at Rhode Island College that worked in conjunction with DCYF to train the frontline workers. The frontline workers would then shadow other frontline workers on the street so they could learn and see what happens. That program was gutted. It doesn't exist anymore. The training's a couple of pamphlets, and there's no shadowing. They pat them on the backside and say, go on, have a good time. The majority of these people are telling us that most probationary frontline workers are not making the 6-month probation period because it's too much stress. It's torturing these people. They go home at night wondering through their minds, is this kid safe? Is this kid okay? Is this kid getting the treatment he needs? Since this governor's taken over, that department, some of these vacancies we're hearing about have been filled. Approximately 36 of them have been identified so far. And of those 36, they earn a salary 21% higher than the average of the entire department, including the directors. These are friendship hires, folks. We are top-heavy in that department. This child advocate who has to report on all of these atrocious deaths and near fatalities is begging us, and she's told us what we need. She articulated it. The depositions clearly articulated. I've met with no fewer than 24 caseworkers, child protective investigators, and certain people who do licensing since that last oversight hearing, and every one of them echoes the same thing. We have not enough people on the front line. Those we do are completely inexperienced, completely burnt out, and don't want to be doing this job under these conditions. This is a department in duress, and we've ignored it for far too long. Now, for the past 2 years, we've passed 24 bills to protect dogs, cats, and chickens. I think it's about time we pass a bill that will immediately bring this assistance to these children that we need, because I value children far more than dogs, cats, and chickens. Let's make this happen, folks. It is the right thing. everyone in this room knows this is the right thing. If the accreditation agency doesn't agree with the number of staff that we have at the time they come to their final conclusion, as a legislative body, we can certainly change that. We can do it right quick. There is absolutely no viable excuse to be against this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Yuchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise in opposition to this, but in listening to this debate, in my 15 years here, I have never seen us more united on one thing, that we need to fix these problems. And in my 15 years, I have never been more embarrassed at what's happened in that agency. And I want to thank our Oversight Committee. I want to thank the bipartisan nature of how that hearing, the last hearing was conducted on this, and it's powerful stuff. And the facts are coming out, and we're learning more. However, there are 40 open FTEs. To go and to throw more at this sounds good, but it's a waste of resources when we want to do other things. Now, we've approved tonight the Auditor General's powers to investigate. If we have these issues where we have this top-heavy staff tripping over each other, send in the Auditor General. Send them in to look and see what's going on. I'll go one step further, because I've been quiet on this issue, and it really bothers me every time I read the paper and I watch you all on TV. Let's get the state police to bolster them if they're not doing the inspections. If inspections need to be done at facilities and group homes, why don't we call them up and have them help them? This needs to be an approach that's different, that has to get together to go in there to see what is happening in these places. I'm sorry, I'm actually spitting when I'm talking. I apologize to everyone. But I share everyone's passion on this, and it pains me to say I don't agree with this, because I think it's misguided. I'm glad we're debating this. I'm unfortunate I had to go after Rep. Chippendale and Chairwoman Williams, because they were great on this. But we all speak in one voice. But let's not throw good resources after bad when we don't know. They have the 40 billets. We have the ability to look at things. We have the accreditation funded, which is going to get them to start looking. When you do an accreditation, anyone who's been through it knows, the first thing you do is you dust it off and say, what the heck was I supposed to be doing? And I have people coming in who are going to embarrass me for not doing it. And suddenly all the things that people have pushed aside and the good ideas, that actually rises to the top. So I'm glad we're doing it. And if we're doing it because it was a Republican suggestion, it isn't. This is a House suggestion, because we all own this budget. So while I'm against this amendment, I want to thank you all for your passion on this issue, and I'm proud to serve with you all. Thank you.
Leader Shekarchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I have, as Deputy Majority Leader Uchi has said, never felt the unanimity of the issue tonight as I have felt. But I want to point out what Speaker Kennedy said, which is true. This is a legislative body. There was a constitutional change several years ago called separation of powers. We can appropriate the money. We cannot force the executive to hire anybody. It is a separation of powers issue. Whether the money's coming from the tax credits or the legislative budget or the promise is all irrelevant. We appropriating the money to do an accreditation. Just as stated by Chairwoman Serpa, Chairwoman Williams, by Representative Roberts, by Leader Uchi, Speaker Kennedy, we all share the passion. We all know there's problems there. We all know it needs to be fixed. But we're a legislative body. We're limited under the Constitution of what we can do. The accreditation is the best answer. It is a public viewing by independent outside experts of what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, and we can share it. When the child advocate came before oversight, and the child advocate, made a recommendation to hire, it wasn't to the legislature for us to hire. Yes, we asked the questions. It was to the department. That was their recommendation to the department, and that stays there. That doesn't go away. We're limited in our role. I wish we had more executive capabilities, but we don't. That's why, however well-intended, how much we all agree with the spirit and intent of this amendment, it is not constitutionally sound, And for that reason alone, we have to defeat this amendment. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of this amendment. I would just like to direct my colleagues to line 7. The director shall create and/or hire. As one of the chairwomen mentioned, there are currently 40 FTEs that are not, that we have budgeted for, that we have not hired personnel for. So while I appreciate my Republican colleagues moving the funding to a different area, I would think technically speaking, we don't need any funding, right? We just need them to hire for the vacancies that already exist. And for that reason, I move passage of this amendment.
Leader Filippi.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleagues and friends. Earlier it was said that Director Percola said you can't hire your way out and you can't fire your way out. And then 2 breaths later it was said how Director Percola was being evasive and wasn't answering my questions at oversight. So respectfully, that catchy phrase, you can't hire your way out, you can't fire your way out, I give it no weight. I give weight to the Child Advocate's recommendation, who's independent of the executive branch, who spent months investigating this, who put multiple people who work in DCYF on the hot seat during a deposition and got them to admit that they need at least 6 more CPIs. To my friend, Leader Sarkarchi, we pass bills in here all the time that say shall, that direct the executive branch to do certain things. If DCYF thinks we're violating separation of powers, let them ignore us. Let them go to court and seek a declaration that this sentence is unconstitutional under separation of powers. Let them do it. We are the first branch of government in this state. And if we direct Dr. Percola and DCYF to hire 19 more frontline workers and 6 more CPIs, you better believe she's going to hear us loud and clear. The separation of powers is a technicality in this instance. If you're right, she can ignore us, and she does it at her own peril.
Whip Chippendale.
Thank you, Speaker. If we allocate this money, if we appropriate this money, yes, we cannot dictate them to hire anybody. But with the language in this bill and the articulated need and clearly the intent which has been articulated throughout this entire debate, it would be atrocious for them not to. And ultimately, Rep. Ucci, and I really mean ultimately, these 40 unfilled positions are compounding the problem, my friend. We have a need for 25 on top of the 40, which are funded, as my good friend Rep. Walsh pointed out. They're already funded. They need 25 more. What is happening in that agency is we're getting numbers of how many cases they have, right? The national average is 14 cases. Rhode Island, we're about 19. But what they're doing is they're averaging in all those 40 unfilled positions that have no cases and the new people who only have 2 or 3. So we have people with up to 24 cases. And in Rhode Island, unlike the rest of the nation where a case is a child, a case is a family in Rhode Island. So a case can be up to 60 children that one social worker is responsible for. This is an absolute crisis. A crisis. I agree. This is an issue that we need cohesion on. We need to be on the same page. But this is not a new issue. DCYF has been, their funding has been being cut. Their staffing has been reduced. As I pointed out, 200 people. 200 is 25% of their staff in the last decade has been eliminated. 40 positions are unfilled. 36 bigwigs got jobs that do nothing but tell the new folks or the frontline folks how to do their job different today. Because every day they get a new directive from the director and her crack team of well-paid consultants or friends or whatever who come up with another great way to do things. These people are running in circles. This is critical. We can agree on this. This isn't Republican, Democrat. This has nothing to do with it. This is the lives of the children that, may I mind you, as a state, we deem their parents are not capable of providing them with a safe, healthy home life. So we take their children from them, and then they die. We're taking their children because we say, you can't do the job. Give them to us. We'll just kill them in a bathtub. Folks, this is critical. Absolutely, absolutely critical. Hold on. My producer's handing me something. Oh, absolutely, yes. As we saw, the accreditation is out to October of 2020. If we do this now, they get help. They get relief. The people who are burnt out and want to quit the job, but the only thing preventing them from doing it is the images of those faces they see whenever they go to these homes, those people will get some relief. It may be marginal at first, but they will get relief from the added troops. We're not throwing money at this. We're doing the responsible thing. We're bringing it back to where it was once funded, not even a decade ago, probably 5 years ago. We're doing the right thing. This is a small ask. I love films. Hey, we just had a film in Foster this past summer. It was so cool. It was really cool to see him do it. But I think $3 million for film credits doesn't even stand in the shadow of doing the right thing for the children that we have taken from the parents who gave birth to them, because we know better, don't we? This vote's going to determine whether we know better.
Representative Handy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to the amendment. Actually, I'm not the biggest fan of the film tax credit, unlike my colleague, Rep. Chippendale. But I think what Rep. Serpa and Rep. Bucci have said is what I've also seen in the Oversight Committee. I think demanding another 25 plus 40 try to get filled, I think, is an unrealistic way to try to solve a problem. Getting a whole lot more new people that are untrained in something is not going to solve a problem. My impressions from the director is that she is working to fill those positions rapidly, and it has been I wouldn't say it necessarily turned a corner. I was horrified by a lot of things we were dealing with that went back to 2007 in one case. But in the end, my impression also from the child advocate wasn't that she was necessarily saying we needed more than those FTEs, but in fact she talked to middle management staffers and they were saying we need another 6 to 12 or something in that range. So I just want to make sure that another member of Oversight sort of puts out there this perspective, because I think this is not the kind of crafted solution we need to this problem, Mr. Speaker, and so I urge everyone to vote down this amendment and others that are similar to it after this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker Pro Tem Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just as I rose on Representative Roberts' amendment, I also rise in opposition to Representative Chippendale's, and it has nothing to do with the film tax credit. I think for the very same reasons that I previously pointed out, we cannot force the executive branch to hire these individuals. Now, Representative Chippendale is quite correct that through the last decade, they have lost a number of employees within DCYF. At the same time, and the director agreed this was the case, you have seen technology actually help that department. Between smartphones and tablets and laptops, many of those workers are able to document the information they need within that agency much easier than the old days when they had to fill it out on a form or have to type it on a form and submit it. So technology has actually been a big assist for DCYF through the years. And while they're still technologically challenged, as the director admitted, they still are looking to order some additional electronic devices in order to assist their staff. They're moving in that direction. Similarly, for a period of time, they were working with Rhode Island College in the social worker program. Somehow there was a very bad disconnect that took place between DCYF and Rhode Island College. They're trying to now cobble that back together again, and I'm hoping, in fact, they are going to accomplish that. So with all that in mind, there's money in this budget to hire at least 40 additional staff. We do not have to pass this amendment, and I'd urge you not to support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you. I cannot express enough just how dire this is. And I'm telling you, those social workers over there and their supervisors, if you had any idea how much they had to do, all of their responsibilities, it's like mind-blowing. I'm telling you, I have seen it, I've been there, I know, I've experienced it. So I can just tell you, like, they are down to bare bones. Every day is critical. We don't have time to wait. And I find it very offensive for anybody to say we're wasting our time or resources. These are our children, and they are worth every dime. They are worth all of our time and all of our resources. So I urge you, please, do something. We need to move on this. Besides give lip service, we need to move into action. That's what tells people that we care. Let them see us move on this, act. And no, the governor cannot just ignore us. Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I really appreciate the passion that's been, and the understanding and everything that's been submitted here tonight in reference to DCYF and the problems that we have. I will be supporting this amendment, and I'll tell you why. Two people who are very close to me, and I want to reiterate, left their jobs after 25 years and said they've had it, okay, to seek other occupations. Mike's, Rep. Chippendale, you know, his amendment sounds great. You know, I'd like to add to that, believe it or not, I'm losing it right now. But there was mention tonight from Johnston, Representative Ucci. He wanted to bring in the state police. Well, we have that authority, okay? We have that authority to get the state police involved, intervene, okay? And that's their job. So with that said, I would urge you to support this amendment. And I'll reiterate what I said. Two people left their job over 25 years. They said there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and administration, it's all hogwash. Okay, they could care less. Like Rep. Williams said, okay, she can find $5 million, $6 million, let's do it. Okay, but let's think about the children. Thank you so much.
Whip Philippi. I mean, sorry, Leader Philippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't going to get up again, but my friend Speaker Pro Tem Kennedy stated that there's all this technology. I met with several DCYF frontline staff last night, and they said they don't even have computers. Management has computers, and when they want their notes transcribed and inputted, they have to write them out and hand them to a data entry clerk. So technology has not enabled us, unfortunately, to reduce the workforce in an efficient, responsible manner. This will be my last time, but I've heard many recommendations that we need to wait until we find the right solution. Frankly, the building's burning, and we should put the fire out. And over the next year and a half, until the accreditations process is done, then we can figure out the perfect solution to this. But right now, we all know that the frontline worker staff needs to be beefed up, and the CPIs need to be beefed up. That's our current situation we have in the department. We're not going to restructure it here tonight. We're going to help put out the fire by adding these necessary positions. Thank you, Speaker.
Last light, Chairwoman Serpa.
Thank you, Speaker, and I don't want to belabor the issue, but I learned something on oversight. Do you know that you don't even have to have a degree in social work to be a social worker for DCYF? You could have a bachelor's degree in art history. You could have a bachelor's degree in phys ed. and you can get hired by DCYF as a social worker. And yes, you do shadow a seasoned social worker. And I don't have the numbers, but I suspect that that's where the turnover is. An art history major or a phys ed major or a philosophy major might not find the down and dirty work of social work all that attractive. When they have to climb to the 3rd floor with police accompaniment, I bet they don't find it all as attractive when they've spent 4 years at the RISD Museum. No offense to the RISD Museum. What did I get myself into? Those of you in business know better than I how much it costs to hire and train and keep an employee. So, Leader Filippi and Rep. Roberts, I mean no offense. I do think we're throwing away good money by hiring, and I fear that we're hiring people who aren't qualified and who really don't understand what they're getting into. And you know, you talk about social media going live, and I can't bring it up right now. I'm getting texts from a social worker, and she said, is that $250,000 job for a full-time ND still on the table at DCYF? And I said, as far as I know it is. And she said, well, that's a waste of a position. I want to bring it up. She said that would be money better spent. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Enter my secret passcode. She said, is that still on the table? The Child Safe Clinic could use an additional $200,000 to better serve the children of Rhode Island. So again, I'm repeating myself, but this accreditation process will involve every single employee, and as Rep. Ucci says, every single employee can help flush it out, and they will point out, as Chairwoman Williams has pointed out, where the waste is, where the abusive positions are, what maybe we should turn into DCYF. I learned the other night in oversight we have 5 or 6 epidemiologists in DCYF. They do something entirely different from what I thought an epidemiologist did, which was study disease and how it spreads. To my seatmate, they have 5 or 6 of them over there that analyze data and put it on spreadsheets. Far be it from me to say they don't need 5 or 6 epidemiologists, but I fully hope that this accreditation process will flush that out. And it's not a question of more bodies, it's better qualified bodies. That's what we need. Speaker, thank you.
Chairwoman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I heard it said that we constitutionally made this change. Does that mean that we must sit back and let them screw up, condone what they're doing, and continue to do? I don't think so. The blood is on y'all's hands that vote for this, and even condone or support this article. Create and fill is what the director must do. Right now, there's over 600 employees there at DCYF. And I think I'll be safe to say that there's over 40 that needs to be purged. Before we agree to hire any more individuals to go in there, we need to purge the bad seeds, the problem, and clean it. Because what do you think is going to happen? The good ones are going to go in there, see the bad ones getting away with stuff, and they get tired real quick and say, if they're getting away with it, then I should be able to do the same.
No.
And then I heard, have the state police check out things. Wow. The police checking the police. What's the common denomination of the state police and DCYF? Same common denomination, boss. You do as I say, do, not as I do. They have yet to address all of those individuals that was involved and responsible for the death of the 9-year-old Zanea. No one has been made accountable for her death. The foster mother? Oh, well, but it goes beyond her. And how about the 20-something other children that people have not been made accountable for those either? But then we're going to give them the power to hire more? We are going to, no, let me rephrase that. You all will be responsible for more deaths because, again, I say that putting good money into a bad situation is not going to work. This MD that's coming in, over $260,000 to consult. Give me 260 minutes and I will consult what they need to do and the job will get done. Imagine, what are we turning into? When they talk about state employees, get over, really? Think about it. This chamber is responsible for all of that, condoning this. Clean it up, and then you can move forward. Don't add to the mess. If you want to be responsible, then, and you do need more workers, but you need good, committed, responsible workers that are going to do the job, opposed to those workers that are going to get a hookup and going to go straight to the bank and not care about handling the responsibility that they're there for. I'm not carrying the weight, nor am I taking the blame, so that'll be on you. Thank you.
Okay, no other lights on the amendment. Clerk, unlock the machine. All in favor, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. 17 in favor, 58 opposed. The amendment fails.